Calcium ion is a very important nutrient, micronutrient. So it has to be transported from the lumen of the intestine to the bone and other parts of the body wherever it is required. So how to regulate this calcium ion and how to transport it in the blood? So these are the very important aspects of regulating the calcium ion concentration both in the blood as well as in the extracellular fluid and then in the bones. So in order to regulate this calcium ion transportation, we have several helpers. We can see here one by one. Calcium regulating hormones are there. They will regulate the calcium ion level in the blood. They are calcium regulating hormones. Then the extracellular calcium concentration. Calcium concentration in the extracellular fluid. The fluid which is present outside the cell is called extracellular fluid. Then diuretics. The condition, diuretic condition, during which what happens to the calcium ion concentration. Then estrogen, a hormone. What is this hormone estrogen? Estrogen, it is a female sex hormone, and that is also going to play a very important role in the maintenance of the or regulation of the calcium ion. Then thyroid gland, that is also connected with the calcium ion because thyroid gland secretes a hormone called PTH, parathyroid hormone, that is actually synthesized and secreted by thyroid gland only. So in that way, thyroid gland plays a very important role in the regulation of calcium ion. Then magnesium level in the blood also influences calcium ion concentration in the blood. Then some conditions, some scenario like metabolic acidosis or metabolic alkalosis which happens in our blood because of some problem in the blood buffer system. So during that time also calcium level plays a very important role. So the role of the CASR, calcium sensing receptor, it is called the CASR, and its role in the extracellular fluid. What is this extracellular fluid? The fluid which is there outside any cell surrounding the tissues. So in that extracellular fluid, calcium is there. And the role of this CASR, that is calcium sensing receptor, which is going to sense the calcium ion present in the extracellular fluid. So its role is very important. We are going to see it now. So this calcium sensing receptor actually a very important receptor that regulates renal calcium ion reabsorption process. So this receptor plays that role. In the kidney, it promotes calcium ion reabsorption by a mechanism that is called a signaling mechanism. Signaling mechanism that is done via calcium sensing receptor, this CASR receptor on the cell membrane. So this particular receptor, it allows homeostasis even in minor changes that happens in extracellular fluid calcium ion concentration. So the extracellular fluid calcium ion level that can be easily regulated with the help of CASR, so that homeostasis of the calcium ion in the extracellular fluid is maintained. So this calcium ion level in the extracellular fluid is maintained in presence of CASR. So this is present in which situation this condition of CASR is present. It is in case of PTH secreting parathyroid hormone, that is parathyroid gland, which is this backside of the thyroid gland, and that gland secretes PTH. So the PTH secreting action of the parathyroid gland is activated when this CASR is activated. Next condition, this is present in calcitonin secreting thyroid gland. Thyroid gland secretes calcitonin. Then in the intestines, then in the kidney cells. So all these four are very, very important when this CASR is activated. So that all the four are present. That is, they will do it their function. So when they do their function, it determines how much amount of calcium ion that is going to move in and out of the body. In means inside the cell, outside the cell, out of the body, via intestine, because some amount of calcium which is there in your diet is not absorbed in the intestine, it will be taken outside, excreted. Similarly in the kidney cells. The kidney cells also, some quantity of calcium is excreted through the urine. So the excretion of calcium takes place in two routes. One is via the intestine, the other one is via the kidney cells. Then how much amount of calcium ion it moves between the bone and the extracellular fluid. Extracellular fluid is ECF. Intracellular fluid is ICF. So the level, regulation of the level of calcium ion between the bone and the extracellular fluid, that is ECF. So both are determined by the above four actions, and that is in turn regulated by CASR, that is calcium sensing receptor. So all are related with each other during metabolism. So during this situation, what is going to happen in the proximal convoluted tubule of the nephron? Nephron is nothing but the functional and structural and fundamental unit of the kidney. So in that nephron we have proximal convoluted tubule. After that, loop of Henle is there. Then third one is distal convoluted tubules. So now we are going to see what is happening in the first tubule, that is called the proximal convoluted tubule. So in that tubule, what is going to happen? So you can see the subapical region. That is in the proximal convoluted tubule, first region is called the subapical region. In this region, the regulation of phosphate excretion is done. So why phosphate comes here? The role of phosphate along with calcium is very, 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 very important on the mineralization of the bone. So that is why regulation of phosphate and in the proximal convoluted tubule also regulates calcium. Then tight control of 1-alpha 25 hydroxy 2D3 synthesis, that is calcitonin synthesis. It is nothing but calcitonin. Then third condition is luminal calcium ion that goes via calcium sensing receptor CASR module, that is CASR, which is there in the plasma membrane, that is going to modulate sodium ion dependent proton secretion. Proton means H plus ion. So sodium ion dependent proton H plus ion secretion is modulated when this CASR is going to come in action, and at that time water reabsorption takes place in the proximal tubule. Then coming to the next part of the nephron, that is called loop of Henle. So what is happening in the loop of Henle during this particular scenario? Basolateral side of the loop of Henle that is especially is luteinizing hormone activated region, that is TALH, that is activated, that in turn modulates paracellular and the transcellular NaCl, that is sodium chloride, and other divalent cation transport. Divalent cation means Ca2 plus, Mg2 plus. They are called divalent cation transport. These divalent cation transport are activated or modulated. The third condition, calcium sensing receptor activation happens, and this activation induces Ca2 plus ion, that is calcium ion loss in the loop of Henle. So all the three events are connected with loop of Henle. Then if you see the activation of this receptor, calcium sensing receptor, what is going to happen? So when the activation of CASR happens, down regulated or decreased renal tubular calcium ion reabsorption takes place. Calcium ion reabsorption is decreased in the renal tubular region, that is proximal convoluted tube. This induces calciuresis, that is a condition, calciuresis, that is presence of excess calcium in the urine, that is called calciuresis. So this induces calciuresis, because you see that reabsorption of calcium is not happening in the renal tubular region, so that calcium is excreted through urine. So that condition comes, that is calciuresis condition comes in response to calcium ion overload in the urine. This also inhibits NKCC2 activity, natural killer cells activity. So all these events are happening once the CASR is activated. Then this regulates paracellular permeability. Paracellular, the cellular, that is cell membrane, where you see that the permeability of the cell membrane to calcium ion is increased or it is regulated. And the same receptor CASR, it is going to act as antagonist. Antagonist means it is acting against, opposite to something, that is called antagonist. So it acts as an antagonist. So at that time, increased calcium ion permeability happens. At the same time, there is no sodium flux, that is acceptance of sodium ion, that is called sodium flux. No sodium flux happens due to upregulation of this claudin 14. Claudin protein is a protein which is upregulated when CASR acts as an antagonist. So this leads to inhibition of the channels, which inhibits channels. They are formed by claudin 16 and claudin 19. So channels are inhibited, closed. Then it involves CASR, calcium sensing receptor, inhibiting calcineurin. Calcineurin is another hormone that inhibited by CASR. Calcineurin is inhibited by CASR. So that leads to activation. That means that activates nuclear factor of the activated T cells. That is nuclear factor of activated T cells, that is NFAT. These activated T cells, they are actually natural killer cells. They are T lymphocyte cells, which down regulates the claudin 14 hormone expression or that protein expression. You see that even protein expression is also down regulated when CASR is activated, when it acts as antagonist. So all these events are happening during this situation. So the activation of CASR is started, all these three events happens, so the calcium ion concentration comes down. Then in the distal convoluted tubules, that is DCT, after loop of Henle, the next portion is distal convoluted tubule, DCT. In that distal convoluted tubule, what is going to happen? We can see that one. Apical membrane of the distal convoluted tubule and subapical apical vesicles, they are all going to play important role in the distal convoluted tubule, along with TRPV5. This is a receptor protein. Then this CASR activation, which increases this level TRPV5, and therefore now calcium ion reabsorption is taking place in the distal convoluted tubule. After that, next comes the collection tube, the collecting duct or collection duct, that is going to collect the urine from the nephron. So in the collecting ducts, what is going to happen? Here you can see that urine, when it is there in the collection duct, what is going to happen? So urine calcium ion levels are influenced, that is which is going to be influenced in the collection duct, where calcium level influence acid excretion and water absorption in the intercalated cell. So one such hormone is called PTH, parathyroid hormone, which is synthesized by thyroid gland. Thyroid gland is just there near the chest, just below the neck. Thyroid gland is there. See, this thyroid gland is going to synthesize this hormone PTH, parathyroid hormone, and this hormone is going to regulate the calcium level in the blood. So this hormone is going to alter expression of calcium channels. So these calcium channels are there in the plasma membrane of the cells. Then calcium binding protein. Already we have seen about calcium binding protein, which binds with the calcium in the lumen of the intestine, and it transports that calcium from one side to other side to the blood. Then calcium pumps, they are ion pumps actually present in the plasma membrane. Then we have exchangers, ion exchangers in the kidney cells. So all these areas where we see that this hormone is going to influence. So the most important two hormones which is going to regulate the calcium ion, or first one is parathyroid hormone PTH. The second one is called calcitriol. Calcitriol is nothing but 1-alpha 25 hydroxy 2D3. So this is commonly known as calcitriol. So this calcitriol is another hormone like PTH. These two hormones are most important hormones. They are going to regulate calcium level in the body. Here you can see that the role of PTH, parathyroid hormone. So here we are having, you see that thyroid gland, this is thyroid gland. This thyroid gland, you see that it is having front portion and the back side portion. So the back side of this thyroid gland, the back portion of the thyroid gland is having parathyroid glands located on the back side of the thyroid gland. Actually this is a part of thyroid gland only, but it is named as parathyroid gland. It's actually the backside portion of the thyroid gland is called as parathyroid gland. So this parathyroid gland actually is going to release this hormone, parathyroid hormone. So this PTH is released in response to low level of calcium ion in the serum, or we can call it as plasma. So these receptors, that is very important receptor which is going to bind with the PTH, that is parathyroid hormone, PTHRP. that actually promotes reabsorption, that is reabsorption of calcium ion, because at low calcium in the serum, at that time only PTH comes into role, because it has to reabsorb calcium from the kidney cells, because already in the blood plasma calcium has come down low level. So in order to compensate that problem, so that reabsorption process will be promoted by this hormone PTH. So you see that the role of PTH. PTH is actually acting on bone, because the calcium level in the blood is very low now. That is the scenario, that is the condition. This is the blood vessel, the red color one is blood vessel. You have RBC cells are there, red blood corpuscles inside the blood vessels. So now the condition is low level of calcium in the serum. So at that time parathyroid gland secretes PTH, parathyroid hormone. This hormone will act on bone, and it will allow release of more and more calcium ion from the bone into the blood, because in the blood the calcium level has come down. It has come down drastically. So we have to increase the calcium level in the blood. So that is why this PTH comes in role. So it will remove calcium from the bone, that calcium will be going to the blood, and it increases the blood calcium level. This is one way. The other way, same PTH which acts on kidney cells. It acts on kidney cells, and in the kidney it will make the calcium to be reabsorbed from the urine, and that reabsorbed calcium again goes to the blood. So in presence of the vitamin D actually you have to get it from sunlight. So vitamin D, it acts on this intestine, so that it will make absorption, that is absorption of more and more calcium from your food, from your diet. So here that excess calcium which is absorbed is going to the blood. So all the three ways, you see that the low level of calcium in the serum is regulated by this hormone PTH, so that calcium level increases suddenly, and the problem is solved. So here you see that in the diet, in the food, you are taking calcium. You are taking calcium in the food, but it has to be properly absorbed in the intestine. Otherwise what will happen, that calcium which is not absorbed in the intestine will go out. It is excreted as a waste product. So if you want to absorb more calcium in the intestine, what is needed for you? Vitamin D is needed, PTH is needed. Vitamin D is not there, then calcium will not be reabsorbed. That is why those people who are exposed to sunlight more, will have strong bone. For example, you take African people. In Africa, you see that the exposure to sunlight is very high. Sunlight is very, very high throughout the year, and people are exposed to sunlight very commonly. Then you see their bone growth. African people are very, very tall, and their bone is very strong, very thick, because they are exposed to vitamin D, which comes from sunlight. So naturally more and more calcium ion will be absorbed in the intestine. That excess calcium will go and deposit in the bone, so that bone strength increases. So thank you very much for your patient listening, and once again if I get another opportunity, I will meet you all with another topic in another video session. So thank you all. Jai Hind.